Hey, thanks for being here, those of you who are joining me, and good night. I'm not used to not wearing headphones. I may have to put them on just because it makes me feel more comfortable. I'm so happy that you're joining me because I am very excited and very proud of what we've accomplished here with Gun Leash. It's nothing short of miraculous, and I'll explain all of the different breakthroughs that this project has allowed me to accomplish. Every time we hit a roadblock, and there were many, I just saw it as an opportunity to make sure that other people weren't going to easily come in behind me. And we'll address all that in a minute. For those of you who don't know what Gun Leash is, just give me 1 second to share my screen. So I am going to put my headphones on because I can hear my own voice, and it helps, believe it or not. For those of you who don't know what Gun Leash is the result of a very scary event that happened to me. And that scary event was I thought I lost my gun. Elisa and I were shopping for furniture. It was during the COVID pandemic, and I had that stupid mask on, and I carry a gun. I think anybody who's listened to my show for any length of time knows that I carry a gun. And I carry my gun inside the waistband appendix, which is up front here, because this is the fastest way to get your hands on your gun. And I was using the restroom, which, by the way, the number one place that people lose their gun is in a restroom. And I thought I left it in the restroom. It turned out I didn't, but I had to call the police and get them involved. And it was a scary event because all I kept thinking was some kid is going to find my gun and end up shooting his baby sister or something like that. So this is where Gun Leash started. I thought there's got to be a way to keep people from losing their gun. And when I started to do investigating, before I actually submitted my patent, I talked to a lot of people in law enforcement, and I found out that this is not only not uncommon, but it's actually in epidemic proportions. Over 20 million handguns were sold in the past 26 months. No, 22 months. People are buying handguns at a record rate. There's a total of 275 million handguns reported to people ownership. There's a lot more out there. That's a lot of handguns. And a lot of people carry guns now. And the reason that they can carry their gun is because about 25 states have gone to something called constitutional carry. We have 393 million guns owned by civilians. 275 million of those are handguns. And now with the 25 constitutional carry states, no one knows who's carrying. Like, I have a concealed carry permit, so the local government and state government in Kentucky knows I carry a gun. But with constitutional carry out there, there's a lot of guns being carried every day, tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions. And why is this a concern? Because those of us who carry a gun are 300 times more likely to lose a gun. Makes sense, right? If you leave your gun home, you're not going to lose it. It could be subjected to subject to, if someone breaks into your home. Uh, Michelle Bear, who's a fan of my podcast, Superhuman Radio, messaged me in anticipation of this happening today and said, while her son has never lost his gun, he left it in his car and his car was broken into. So if you carry a gun, you're really at risk. And guns are too important. They require a lot of responsibility. You lose your keys, you lose your wallet, you can replace those things. You lose your gun and someone may lose their life. And I'll illustrate this now. The lost guns contributes to over 500,000 guns a year. That's 500,000 guns a year. And 15% of those will later be used in the commission of a crime. So if we use that number, 500,000, which that's highly suppressed number, because I said people don't register their guns anymore. I mean, you have to pass a federal background check to get one, but no one's paying attention to where you are and what you're doing with it. And as a result that no one registers their guns anymore, when they lose guns, they don't report it. And this is a fact. Everything that I'm saying right now is a fact. And I've learned it from talking to law enforcement and government agencies. So well over 500,000 guns every year, 15% of them will fall into criminal hands. That's well over 75,000 guns a year. I believe that what we are working on here, and I'll tell you who the team is too, because I'm very excited about the people working with me. I could not have done this by myself, I'll tell you right now. But if we could keep 75,000 guns a year out of criminal hands, what impact could we have on gun crime? Way more than any of these politicians are talking about with suggested legislature. Suggested legislature doesn't keep people finding ways to find guns. One of the ways they find them is people who lose their guns out in the world. So imagine that we can keep 75,000 plus. I'm saying that's a highly underrated number. 75,000 plus guns out of criminal hands. What impact could we have on the United States? I mean, I think it's very, very impressive to think about this. And keep in mind that states are now considering prosecuting you. If you lose your gun and it's used in a commission of a crime, they're going to bring you into that case. They're going to make you culpable for that criminal having your gun and then doing a crime. So at least, I mean, you may not go to jail, but you're going to at least pay tens of thousands of dollars to find an attorney to defend you. So this is really, really important stuff right now. Gun owners are going to become more liable for things that they didn't do, except they lost their gun. I have been talking to police officers, law enforcement agencies. You can't believe, now two things I want to mention here. First of all, there is this notion that no one loses a gun. And I know why people think that, because it's so important. You would think that people would take extra steps to make them lose their gun. That's not true. People are losing their guns right now while I'm doing this discussion. Somebody is leaving a restroom and left their gun in the bathroom, or it fell out of a purse and onto the floor at the restaurant. So guns are being lost as we speak. But there's this idea, and mostly gun owners think no one loses their guns until a gun owner loses his gun. They think it's impossible. They'll say stupid things like any gun owner who loses his gun deserves not to have one, or something like that, because I've heard this before. But that doesn't solve the problem. That attitude doesn't solve the problem. Ridiculing the person that lost their gun doesn't solve the problem. Taking an action that lets you know if your gun is outside of your person, I want to say, if your gun is outside of your control, and that alerts you, that's the answer. Not ridiculing people who have lost their guns. I've had several police officers tell me that this is a quiet epidemic. I just spoke to one a couple of days ago. I have a friend who used to be the agent in charge of the FBI for Kentucky. We've had numerous conversations. He's told me about FBI agents that lose their guns. I I have good friends in the airline business. Many of them are allowed to carry guns now, registered federal marshals technically. But if they leave their gun in the cockpit, they are summarily fired, and it happens all the time. So lost guns is a big problem, and we have a solution. And when I decided to do this project, privacy was the utmost importance. And what I mean about that is this: Gun Leash is a simple proximity device. It tells you when your gun is on you, and it tells you when it's not. That's it. It doesn't have GPS. It can't identify your coordinates of where you are. It doesn't track your gun. The first thing gun enthusiasts say to me about this is, oh, I don't want to put this on my gun because then the government can track me. No, this is a simple proximity device. It's kind of like if you have an alarm system at home, you have a door sensor. All it knows is if the door is opened or closed. That's it. That's a proximity device. And that's all Gun Leash is. It just lets you know, hey, you had a gun with you earlier and you don't have it now. And it lets you know within seconds of that occurrence. So you're still close enough to retrieve it. Oh, I took it off in that room, or it fell out of, oh, it must have fallen out of my pocket in this room. That's all it does. This does not track. So I want to be clear on that. Gun Leash is a postage stamp size device. It's an electronic board, and we're going to talk about the electronics in a minute, that you can stick anywhere on your gun, and it talks to an app, talks to the Gun Leash app. You can monitor as many guns as you want. If you like, I have backup guns. I have guns that I carry when I don't want to wear a holster. I have several guns that I wear. I can put a Gun Leash on every one of my guns. The app manages each and every one of them. And the app is an alarm just to you. No one else gets a message. It's private. And that's another part of the privacy feature of this. And as you can see there, I've got it on the bottom of a Smith & Wesson 45. It's very small, but you don't have to put it. You don't have to put it there. You can put it here. Let me just put this up real quick. There's my Taurus. It's on the side. It fits perfectly into my holster. So you can put this anywhere. The only place we recommend you don't put it is on the receiver, because that's violently moving back and forth every time you fire your gun. And we don't want it to be pushed that hard. Let's just say that. Okay, so this is what it looks like on a gun. And this is what it looks like in general. Here we go. Put this image up. That board represents several major breakthroughs. First of all, that is the smallest full functioning BLE 2.0. And when I say full functioning, it has a ergometer on it. It has a temperature sensor on it. These are things we're going to use later, but that is the smallest Bluetooth beacon, full functioning Bluetooth beacon in the world. And it had to be. That was one of the big breakthroughs. We had to make this small enough where you could put it on your gun and it wouldn't get in the way, number one, or no one would use it. Number two, by making it so small, we had battery problems. How do we power this for a year at a time? Because I wanted to use a tiny little hearing aid battery, which we did. And the electronic engineer that we worked with is actually a guy I've known from the 80s when I was in the mobile telephone and paging business. We wrote code. We found a way to manage battery consumption that no one has ever done before. So we put a little tiny off-the-shelf, over-the-counter hearing aid battery in here on this board, and it lasts a year at a time, which is acceptable for consumer electronics product. As you can see, it's very tiny. That board is so robust that we have other features we're going to identify later and start using later. But in the initial product, we're not going to do that. Okay, let me get back to this. So we're not just looking at managing the presence of your gun that you carry. I want to never use the word tracking because that's everybody's, oh, I don't want to track. It doesn't track. It's proximity. But what about the guns you leave home? So I carry one gun. I own 3 or 4 now. I keep the other ones in my nightstand. And I do that because we don't have young children in the house. What about those guns I leave home? We're going to be introducing next year the gun corral. And it looks like a nightlight. You'll plug it into an electrical outlet near where your guns are kept. And the Bluetooth beacon that you already have, your gun leash on your gun, will talk to that. And if someone fiddles with your guns at home, you'll get a push notification immediately to the app saying, hey, your Glock 19 was just removed from the drawer. So you have the ability to manage guns that you're not carrying yourself. And what we realized is law enforcement has a big problem with losing guns. I've been told by a captain of the detectives for the Philadelphia Police Department, he's retired now, that cops lose their guns all the time. And what they do is they go out and buy a new one and carry it and hope no one ever tries to compare the serial numbers, because police officers used to lose their jobs when they lost their gun. But now we are so understaffed in police departments, they can't afford to fire them. But they do want to know if Gonzalez lost his gun last night. They're going to introduce Gun Corral Enterprise, and it'll be just like the gun leash. Every police officer will have an app. Every police officer will have a beacon on his or her gun, but it will report upstream to software that the administrators in the police department will know, hey, so-and-so lost his gun last night. He didn't get it back. He didn't retrieve it. They'll know when in the morning they'll call him and say, hey, now lost guns in law enforcement won't be a silent event. And the last step of our growth is going to be to partner with companies like Smith & Wesson and Glock and Taurus and other handgun manufacturers so that we can build the board right into the chassis of the gun. And then we have more battery power. We can stack batteries in it. We can do some other really cool things when we have unlimited battery supply. This is going to be like, for those of you old enough to remember, OnStar. GM was approached by OnStar. OnStar gave GM the cellular transceivers. GM built them into the cars. And then OnStar shared the back-end revenue because it was a concierge model that they captured from people, members, when they signed up. We see these 4 groups as our competition, but in essence, they're really not. Gun safes will protect your guns that you leave home from theft, but they don't do anything for your gun in the event that it's at risk of being lost out in the world. Nothing. Trigger lock's the same thing. Yeah, they'll keep your children from shooting themselves with your gun, but it does nothing for the gun you're carrying out in the world to keep you from losing it. No one wants smart guns. Biometrics are not trustworthy enough. And anybody who owns one of those small gun safes that you put next to your bedstand and it recognizes your handprint, you put your hand on it, it's supposed to open immediately, knows you got to put your hand down 2-3 times before it takes. No police officer wants a thumbprint reader on a gun. And he is literally in a life and death situation. And he has to worry about grabbing the gun just right so the gun will unlock. And then he finds out he didn't, but it's too late because the perp is going to shoot him before he can reposition his hand. The other thing with biometric guns is, and I thought of this the other day. Well, actually, I thought of it originally a while ago. But if I leave my gun at home and someone breaks into my house and Elisa is home, what good is my gun if she grabs it and she can't shoot it because that's not her thumbprint? They're also talking about using wristwatches where the wristwatch will talk to the gun. Well, if I take the wristwatch with me, that gun is of no use to her. And then the last one are these tracker devices like Tile. They're too big, number one, and they do exactly what gun owners don't want to do. Gun owners don't want their guns tracked. They are not a simple proximity device like this. They're really not. The technology isn't really usable for this purpose. I'm not going to go into all this stuff. What I am going to say is, if you're interested in getting a gun leash, go to gunleash.com, GUNLEASH.com, and you can sign up for the early release notices. You'll get special offers. You get a gun leash at a ridiculous price. Again, gunleash.com is the place to go. And put your email address in there, and we will keep you posted on the release. We expect to start releasing them in December. We're going to be doing a soft launch in December. And then in January, we'll do a full launch. But we will have product to ship in December. So if you're interested, go to gunleash.com to sign up. Also, we are accepting investors. It's called an angel fund. And we are working with investors right now who want to be involved in this. And if you're one of those people, if you're an accredited investor, I think it's called a 605 or 608C with the SEC. If you're somebody who invests regularly and you are interested in learning about this investment, that takes a different phone call and conversation entirely. And you should email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. That's the easiest email address to get to me that I check every day. I know I have a couple Gun Leash email addresses, but those of you who listen to the show, and that's why you're here, because I announced it through the show, just send it to onair@superhumanradio.net. We know this is a great digital media experiment I did. I spent $10 a day for 6 days, and I put that ad together that you see there on the left. Never lose your gun, never leave your gun, shop now. And we had a ridiculous 13.5% click-through rate, which is unheard of. It really is unheard of because usually a typical IG in-feed click-through rate is 0.22%. So think about that. We should have expected 0.22%, and we got 13.5%. And the same thing is true of the conversions, the number of emails we captured. We captured, so the conversion rate should have been 1.08%, and we captured 21% of the people who visited the website signed up to keep in touch with us to let them know when we would actually be selling these out the door. That shows a huge appetite for this product. And again, it's because people lose their guns, but they don't talk about it. They don't tell their friends because they feel embarrassed. They do. They lose their guns all the time. Police officers lose their guns. People lose their guns. This idea that people lose every other flipping thing in the world but not a gun is just silly. It really is. That's the on the left, that's the welcome screen to the app. My son Chase is running through the final version of the app right now and testing it. The app should be ready for distribution in 1 week to 2 weeks. This is the team. I'm really excited about this because this is kismet, because I had this idea and I filed a patent for it, but then I had to find a way to make the transmitter as tiny as I could. And I went to China and looked, but they didn't have anything near the size of this, nothing. And by the way, there is not a single component on that board from China, not a single component. And I did that specifically because I didn't want to get caught in a situation where, we're out of chips, and so I'm out of business for 3 months. And we know they did that to GM during 2020, 2021. So all those components are either from the United States or a couple spots in Europe that we found very, very easy to work with companies and very supportive. So Alan Shea is a guy that I actually worked with his company in the 80s when I was in the mobile telephone and paging business. He is brilliant. Um, and then there's Catherine Mickelson, who is so she's my chief marketing officer, but she is so much more. I mean, literally, like she does stuff that has nothing to do with marketing that is literally moving this project faster and faster. I couldn't do anything without Catherine. And she introduced me to Scott Wiener, and Scott is an interesting guy. He spent 35 years or so, and so has Catherine. They both came from Silicon Valley. And Scott has launched 6 companies, startups in Silicon Valley, all huge successes. And so he has had a big influence on our projections, our pro forma, because he's done this before. How many employees we're going to need for this and that. It's wonderful. And then there's me. Really, all I had was the idea. These are the people that made it happen. And like I said before, I could not do this without this team. I would probably still be trying to figure out what the next steps are. But this is a dream team for me. Like, I never thought I could find people from Silicon Valley to work on this project, but both Scott and Catherine love what we're doing. They believe in it. This is a mission now, because we really do understand that Gun Leash can make handgun ownership safer for everyone. And that's the mission here, right? Making new laws and not enforcing them, we know how that goes. The politicians make laws every day, and then no one enforces them. But this puts the control of safety in the gun owner's hand, and it is a reasonable thing to ask them to do. It is reasonable given the gravity of owning a gun. And I'm getting this stuff out of here. Okay, so this is the basics of this project. I'm very, very excited about it, as you could tell. I predict that I'll probably be off the air by 2024. And so, I'm not sad about that, because let's see. Next week is the 17th anniversary of this show of Superhuman Radio. And I think I've done everything I can. And by the way, if you have questions, please post them, okay? Because I'll answer every single question, because I just want to make people aware about this device. If you know someone or you carry a gun, this is a reasonable thing that will keep you out of trouble. Because remember, if you lose your gun and it's used in the commission of a crime, you'll be named in a lawsuit to be held culpable for putting that gun in a criminal's hands. And that will cost, tens of thousands of dollars. Natalie, I'm going to go ahead and look at the questions. Do you see any that we have? Okay. Yeah, the most frequently reported place they're stolen is from a car. It's unreal how many people leave their vehicles unlocked with a gun in it. But the number one place that guns are lost is the restroom, both the women and men's restroom. This is number one by far. Number one by far. And we know the states. Kentucky is the 6th highest gun loss state. Alabama is number 1. I can't remember the other ones right now, but we know that these are the places that people lose their guns. And it's happening every day. It's happening right now. This will be huge for cops and us that carry all of the time. Yes, it will. Nobody wants to lose their gun. No one wants to be considered reckless and lose a gun. And this is a strong opportunity to keep that from happening. Chip shortage is still ongoing. I'm in the car biz. Sean Wasson says, we can't get new cars. Always appreciate made in America. Yes, and it is made in America. Made in America, and there isn't a single Chinese component on it. Yes. And in fact, I could be shopping injection molding in China because they're the cheapest, but we're not doing it. I don't want to have to buy anything from China. And it has nothing to do with, it's all about trade. It has nothing to do with Chinese people. But China is a predator. They will, and we know both Kat, me, and Scott have discussed. We predict that in 2 years, China is going to come into the market and try to compete with us, but we will have such a strong foothold. And then the other thing is, I don't think gun owners want to buy a Chinese product to put on their gun. I just don't, because most gun owners like myself are patriotic, and we don't like countries that are predators. Yeah, Gettysburg. We don't like countries that are predators, that steal our technology and go around us. And China is well known for doing that. So we think that China will come in at some point in time and try to copy us, because let's face it, a patent is only as good as the ability to defend it in court, and it takes a lot of money to defend your patent. But this is the first iteration of the product, the first revision, the first version. But what we have planned will always be 5 steps ahead of anybody else. So, but that's it. That's the whole story. It's Friday afternoon. I wanted to get this done quickly. If you're interested in a gun leash for yourself, if you're interested in a gun leash for family members, go to gunleash.com and sign up, and you'll be notified of some really ridiculous offers we're going to help launch the product with. And of course, if you're interested in hearing more about the financial model and opportunity, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. And that's it. Unless anybody else has any questions, I really want to thank those of you who did show up. I really appreciate it. This video is going to stay up, so feel free to pass it around to friends. It's on YouTube, on Facebook. I think we have a stream running right now on Twitter. So yeah, pass it around. Do me a favor, and we'll see everybody. So I have no show Monday, but we have 4 shows next week that are going to rock your world. We're breaking some really, really exciting ground in the environment of anti-aging and supplementation next week. So don't miss that. All right. Thank you for being here. Have a good weekend. We'll see you soon.